let's get started with this one. Thank you for coming. We're just going to be talking a bit about mindfulness for academic success in a nutshell. Stuck in a nutshell. And we're going to do a little mindfulness exercise as well to give you a little taste of what we're talking about. But I'd like to first set the scene with this, and also again, I'd like to acknowledge the lands of the Ghana people and thank them for their custodianship of this beautiful land that we are meeting on today. So we're going to today learn about what mindfulness is and also what it isn't. We'll talk about how mindfulness can be a helpful skill for study. You might identify where you are or when you are already mindful and ways you can bring these mindful moments into your daily life. And as I mentioned, we'll do a brief practice and debrief as well. That's the old flyer, but you don't need to see that because you've got the new flyer in your hands. If you're online, then you can Google it. Flinders Uni Mindfulness for Academic Success. And you'll get all the information you need. But essentially, I will tell you, those times are not correct, obviously, but the times aren't on the flyer, but if you scan that QR code, we are running a program on every Tuesday, beginning week 3 from 12 to 1. And we have drop-in sessions as well every Tuesday at 12 p.m. if you can't make the 5-week program. And we'll likely do a couple of these throughout the year as well. So thinking about which group are you in? Are you totally new to this? Do you know a bit about mindfulness or do you know a lot about mindfulness? Who's in I'm totally new to this? Pretty much new? I know a bit. Who's in I know a bit? Okay. Yeah. Let's find out how much you know. We won't test you. So I always encourage people to have a beginner's mind when they come to learn about this, because there's a lot of information out there about people mentioning mindfulness here and there in media and in the world of well-being as well. So different people might have different ideas about what mindfulness actually is. So let's try and just have a clean slate here and start from the beginning. So let's start with, it can be helpful to start with what mindfulness is not. So mindfulness is not being in default mode, which essentially is the opposite of having attention, having good focus and concentration. So tell me, does everyone here drive? Have you ever driven from A to B, or been on the bus, or been in the car with someone else, and you got to your destination and you wondered, how did I get here? Has that ever happened? Like, yeah. Or you just put your keys down and 5 minutes later you've got no idea where you put them. Or you sit down to study or do some important work and it's been quite a bit of time and you still haven't really gotten very far because your mind is somewhere else. Okay, we're all nodding, this happens to the best of us. This is what we call automatic pilot or default mode, where our brain drifts off and we forget where we are. We're in the present moment, wanting to engage in whatever it is that we are doing at that particular moment. There's nothing bad about that, but it can, a lot of the research shows that when we drift off, and often our mind goes into the past and future thinking, that it can often fall into this negative type thinking as well. Especially when we're sort of doing a lot of regret and rumination about past things, or we might be having worry or anxiety about the future. A few nodding heads here. Yes, welcome to being human. This is what it's like to be human. We all experience this to one degree or another. So this overactive default mode is linked with mental health concerns, poor cognitive and academic performance, can be linked to difficulty understanding others, and poorer communication. So how we can describe mindfulness is essentially being here in the present. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's bad to be in past or future. I mean, if we're doing it consciously, if you're consciously having nice memories about the past, or you're learning from a past mistake you made, that's great. If you're consciously planning for the future, that's really important. That's a really crucial skill to have, is to plan for the future. But if we're doing that in an unconscious way, it can often be very unhelpful. The human brain has something like 20 to 30,000 thoughts a day. And the research shows that approximately 2/3 of those thoughts are negative. And the reason for that is quite complex. Well, not so complex, but it's how our brains have evolved. Our brains have evolved to be like that, to survive. So 100,000 years ago, when there were all these dangers in our environment, there were predators, there were saber-toothed tigers trying to kill us every day, there was rival clans, there were people in our clan trying to kill us, there were extreme weather events. All day, every day, there was danger, and our brains evolved, our ancestors' brains evolved to survey our environments constantly, looking for potential danger. And now if we fast forward to 2024, the saber-toothed tigers are gone, it's a pretty safe place, especially here in Adelaide, but our mind is still set up to constantly survey our environment for danger. Hence why, instead of worrying about saber-toothed tigers, we might worry about what people think about us, how we're fitting in, are we going to finish that essay on time, are we going to get that job after we finish our degree, yada yada yada, the list goes on. So often when we have these extreme sort of anxiety responses, it might be just from a thought about past future, or it might be something that we're worried about now, but our body is reacting sometimes as if there's a saber-toothed tiger right in front of us. It's preparing us to fight or flee the situation. That's that fight, flight and freeze response. If you have any questions, just jump in. So John Kabat-Zinn, he's known as the grandfather of mindfulness. He describes it as the awareness that emerges through paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally to the unfolding of experience. So we're paying attention, but we're doing it on purpose. We're in the present moment. We're doing it non-judgmentally because often it's easy to beat ourselves up when our mind wanders off and has all these negative, unhelpful thoughts. So we want to bring the sense of compassion and acceptance to this. Bhikkhu Bodhi explains it as, or defines mindfulness as, to remember to pay attention to what's occurring in one's immediate experience with care and discernment. So at the top there it says, your body's presence is your mind. And that's one of the, it's a really great question, because our body is always here, but often our mind is somewhere else. And some of the really key and really basic mindfulness strategies are about using our body, using our senses, because that's part of our body, what we can see, hear, touch, taste, smell, are great ways to bring ourselves back to the present moment. So if we're not in default mode, we're probably going to be being mindful. The opposite of our mind wandering to past and future unconsciously is paying attention to the here and now. Ruminating and thinking about the same thing over and over, the opposite of that would be directly experiencing what's in our life or in our awareness. Judging, criticising and avoiding, the opposite of those is curiosity, friendliness and openness to ourselves and our experience. So instead of judging, we get curious about our experience. We are bringing a sense of friendliness and kindness to ourselves, knowing that we have this primal brain that is going to do this no matter what. But we're also being open to the experience. We're not avoiding things, we're being open to all the experiences within us and the experiences outside of us as well. Bringing a sense of acceptance. So these are some of the ingredients of mindfulness. We're purposefully bringing attention into the present moment. We bringing this attitude of openness and curiosity, as I mentioned. Openness as well, in a sense that the opposite of that would be to trying to control our thoughts and feelings. And we know, I'm not sure if we can do a little experiment right now. If I ask you right now to not think of a lemon, how's that going for you? Any lemon thinkers there? So we need to just be open. And also feelings. Have you ever noticed that sometimes out of the blue you have this rush of whatever, excitement or anger or frustration, but we don't have a huge amount of control over our feelings. So we're just bringing a sense of acceptance to that. Okay, I want to do a little share here. When are you already mindful, do you think? When are you already in the present moment? Probably when you're doing certain activities, yeah.
When I'm studying.
Oh, that's good. That's lucky.
Like, I generally put like some music in so I can't like notice anything else, and my study even has a window to a fence, so I just kind of end up focusing because I have to.
Yeah. Okay. I think you're going to be very successful if you have that skill. How do you do that? Can you teach us?
I don't know. It's like if I try to pick things that I'm interested in. Like I start off with doing something that either isn't too hard or I'm interested in, and then I can move on to like stuff that I have to do.
Yeah, brilliant. Anyone else?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I think that last one is pretty impressive. So it's like pretty much just like locking yourself in a room and just getting yourself to just do your work, and I can't do that. But one thing so we run tabletop games for groups of friends, and I mean when you're playing and stuff like that, it's very easy to kind of zone out. And I do that sometimes, but when you're running it and you're facilitating it, and I don't know if you find the same thing with facilitating stuff like this, but it's when you've got a lot of things to be focused on, and new people to be aware of and keep track of, it's a lot easier to kind of stay focused on it.
Yeah, yeah. And some people call that the flow state. Has anyone heard of that? Being in flow? Yeah. So when athletes or artists are really focusing on what they need to do, like the people in the Olympics, you know, they're going to be very much in the moment when the ones who win, they're the ones who are in the moment. If your mind wanders off for a second, you might miss a step or not do the best you can, and Anything for you guys? Painting, beautiful.
Although you just when I'm with my son, like cuddling or playing.
Yes.
He's giving me a moment.
Being with kids or animals is one of the best ways of being in the here and now, because they're so lovable and adorable, and you have fun. And often because they're in the moment too.
They're in the moment 24/7.
Exactly. They're not worried about.
Nope.
Yeah. So it brings us into the moment. Thank you for sharing.
Got a pet cat. It's very
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. So, as I mentioned before, coming to our senses is a great way of coming into the present moment. So let's just do a little activity here. Just noticing your body in the chair, noticing where your body is touching the chair, the back, your sit bones, your feet's touching the ground. And just look around the room and just notice 3 things you can see. Maybe fixate on one thing. And just noticing the shape of that thing, the colour, the texture. And letting your eyes move around again. You might want to close your eyes or keep them open and just notice what you can hear. Sounds inside the room or outside the room. So just by using your senses, you can quickly bring yourself back into the here and now. That's called informal mindfulness, something you can do at any point in the day. It might be using your senses directly, or it could be, as you say, painting. It could be using painting or being with children. studying. That would be great. Tabletop games, or running tabletop games, brilliant. It can also be with taste and smell as well. We do a little exercise in the program where we get everyone to eat a little raisin, a little sultana, mindfully. It takes us 7 minutes to eat one sultana mindfully. Yeah.
I used to teach kids yoga,
Yeah.
and for our meditation, the only way you could get them to meditate is by slowly eating a piece of chocolate.
Yeah.
They loved it.
Yeah. How good is that? It brings you into the here and now, doesn't it? Yeah.
And you appreciate it.
Yeah, that's right. And you appreciate it and savour it more. Because often, I'm not sure about you guys, but if I get chocolate, it's going in. Yeah. So, yes, there are things we're doing informally that just come up that bring us into the present moment. But when we actually intentionally go out of our way to be more in the present moment, it helps us to build these new neural pathways in our brain. This is the most exciting thing about mindfulness, because we know that the brain is plastic. There's this thing called neuroplasticity. We can change our brain. So the more we are in the present moment and practicing mindful meditation, that's the formal mindfulness, or even informal mindfulness, it creates those new neural pathways. The more we're in automatic pilot and default mode, the more it strengthens those ones. So there's a real benefit for this that's been proven by science. This isn't just some woo-woo stuff, this is science, and that's what makes it so exciting for me especially. We know that it can be easier to learn when you have a guide or a teacher, hence why we provide this program for students. And students really seem to enjoy this program. We get lots of really positive feedback from students. One of the other great parts about it is that it's 15 students in a room all learning together as well. We're all on the same journey. I'm on that journey as well. And we can learn from each other, we can share together and make new friends too. So science shows that regular meditators, they show growth in certain brain areas that are involved with emotional regulation. So being able to deal with strong feelings in a more constructive way, so it doesn't control our actions so much. Attention, memory, being able to take a different perspective, and compassion. And having compassion for others helps us have compassion for ourselves as well, which often is lacking for most people. And having compassion for ourselves also helps us to have compassion for others as well. So what we're strengthening here is this prefrontal cortex. The amygdala here is that ancient part of our brain, that primal part, that fight-flight response. If I do a little hand model here, this is a very simplistic way of showing the brain, but you've got the amygdala down here, that early primal part of our brain. This is that prefrontal cortex that's responsible for decision-making, all of our executive functioning, concentration and focus. When we get overwhelmed with strong feelings, which can happen, psychologists use the term of flipping your lid. Have you heard that before? Yeah. You flip your lid and all of a sudden this is gone, concentration, focus is gone, and we are in that fight-flight mode. So that's normal, it's going to happen. Mindfulness can help us to bring this back down and stay in this executive functioning part of our brain a bit more easier. Okay, we're going to do a short practice now. So you're welcome to, well, what I recommend doing is just sitting back in your chair, putting your feet flat on the ground, and you're welcome to close your eyes, you don't have to. You can just fix your gaze in front of you, that's fine. And if you do choose to close your eyes, you can open your eyes at any point during the exercise as well. We'll go for about 5 minutes and we'll use the breath. One thing I haven't talked about yet is using the breath as an anchor to the present moment. Very handy because the breath is always there. Okay, all right. I don't have my bells with me here today, but that's all right. We'll just go ding. And we'll close our eyes if you want to, or keep them open. You can fix your gaze and just follow my instructions. If you're doing this at home, then please follow along. So taking a couple of deeper breaths in through your nose and out through your nose. Noticing your feet on the ground, noticing your body on the chair, noticing that we are supported by this chair and the earth, that we are being supported by the entire planet, which is a nice reminder to bring some stability into our lives through connecting with this earth. Noticing what you can hear inside the room and also outside the room. Just allowing your senses to acknowledge the sounds, but allowing the sounds to come to you. Allowing them to wash over your consciousness. And now taking one or two deeper breaths again and just noticing where in your breath, the process of breathing, that you are more aware of your breath. So it might be, you might be able to notice the rise and fall of your chest and your belly. If it helps, you can put one hand on your belly or one hand on your chest or both to really sense the inhale and exhale. Or you might like to notice the sound of your breath. Or you might like to just follow it in through the nose, down to the bottom of your lungs and back up again. So just paying attention to that part of your breath that you can easily focus on. For the next 2 minutes, that's what we're going to be doing, is focusing on that breath. Allowing your breathing to come to its normal rhythm. So for the next 2 minutes, there's nowhere else to go, nowhere else to be. Just allowing our attention to rest in the breath. Now what's likely going to happen is your mind will probably wander off and think about other things. You might think about what you were doing before this session, or what you're doing later, or how weird this is right now sitting in this